Hello again, guys. This is Patrick. Today I'm going to show how we can remove triangles from some of the models that we work with or receive from third party, either from purchasing or downloading from internet, or when somebody else hands over their work to us. Sometimes we don't get easy to work with quadrangles or quads as much as we like. Sometimes we need to do quite a lot of editing before we can actually do anything else to it. So what I have here is a basic base mesh which I modeled, and then I turn it into a triangle, and then from this model I've applied a smooth operator to it, and then which gives me quads, and then I triangulated two triangles, this smooth version. Okay, so and later on I'm just going to show you sort of just apply the operator and get it to work kind of scenario, and then I will show you a scenario where sort of it doesn't work. Okay, and maybe the reasons why it doesn't work like we expect it to. So let's start with the dense triangulated mesh first. So in Maya, what we do is we go into the polygons modeling menu, and under mesh, what we need to do is just go to quadrangulate with the options. So this is the default options, and all I need to do is just hit apply. So what just happened is with a click of the button, we got most of our triangles out of the way. So let me undo that, and redo, undo, and redo. Okay, you can see that it's quite intelligently taken away all the diagonal triangular edges and given us quite a nice, almost back to the original version of the quadrangulate mesh. So let's just keep it for now. I'm going to apply the same thing to my base mesh, okay, and my triangulated base mesh. So with all the default and I just hit apply. You can see that it works pretty well for here, and up to here, and then you get unexpected. It unexpectedly deleted all the edges that we want horizontally and kept the slanted diagonal edges. And here it's like inconsistent. For one set of faces it keeps the horizontal, and the other set of faces it keeps the diagonal lines. Okay, so let me undo that. So that's for quadrangulate. Sometimes if you don't know how to work it, it's either a hit or a miss. So later on in this video I'm going to show more of how we can do our quadrangulation in a more controlled manner instead of just hitting and praying for the best. So most of the time when we get stuff from when I get stuff from the internet, or when somebody hands off their work to me, it is always mid-high poly. So somehow with this it sort of tends to work in a mid-high poly kind of setting, but it doesn't always work. So in a very simple way, without going into parts and all that, there's a way to try for a different result. So if I undo and get back my triangles, if I hit just with the default options, sometimes I would get although this is like mostly what I would expect and it's doing a good job, sometimes I get results like that. Excuse me. So you see that from my base mesh I get a nice edge loops running parallel to each other, but over here, the quadrangulation algorithm is trying to sort of keep a straight line, cuts diagonally across. So, excuse me. The worst case scenario is we manually got to go in and fix this by sort of creating edges back to where we want them. Okay, hitting enter, creating and then deleting the unwanted edges back again. So sometimes there's no way around this because of the complexity of our model. Okay, so something like that, and then you have to keep doing that, which is a pain. Sometimes there's absolutely no I'm just undoing lots and lots to get back my triangular model. I think when there's some curvature and yeah, I can't really tell you when it will work and when it doesn't, but it has a tendency to work on large number of mid-high number of poly count, and when we have like curved faces where there is a difference in between our very obvious edge loops and where we have very obviously which is to the algorithm which edges are sort of the diagonal that it doesn't want. Okay, and the other in another case where it wouldn't work, our default values would be, okay, I'm gonna get when the normals are hard normals. Okay, so if I turn off my faces and if I turn off my faces, I wouldn't know that there were edges here because the software and the renderer is sort of smoothing out the normals of the edges. So even with close-up, I wouldn't able to tell that how dense my model is until I switch on my wireframe, right? So if I set my edges to hard, okay, so I'm gonna go to my edges, select everything under normals, and I harden my edges, and I go back to object mode and I deselect. I would see that my model, I would be able to tell where the edges are exactly, because now my viewport and my hardware renderer is not trying to smooth out between the edges, so I see exactly where the faces are. So in such a case, if I select my model and I use my default and I hit apply and try to quadrangulate this, turn it into quads, apply, okay, so undo again and I apply again. Take a look at this stack. So it's polyquad, the quadrangulation is applied, but if I deselect or show my edges, it remains all the same. Okay, so I ran into this problem quite a long time, and it sort of discouraged me to think that quadrangulate doesn't work at all in some cases. So what we're missing here, okay, is I have the poly edges hardened, okay, from where we left off. What we need to do is turn off keep hard edges. Okay, so all the edges were hardened, and we are asking Quadrangulate to keep them and not turn them into quads. So that's not what we want. So turn off, hit apply, okay, and it does what we want again. So this is important. Okay, let's undo that. Sometimes when it doesn't quadrangulate the way we want it, we can try, okay, maybe we can just take a look at this. We quadrangulate, maybe it's not doing what we want to do, so undo. We can try to do a different angle. So it's looking at the angle between two faces. If they are within a threshold, maybe they're within 30 degrees apart from each other, we can say that we want to sort of turn them into a quad. So that works for like faces that have, for example, between these two faces, that angle isn't too much, but between this face and this face and this face, there's a great angle. So the software would know to turn these two faces into a quad, and then turn these two faces, because of the angle, it would keep these two faces to a quad and these two faces to a quad, and not try and turn these two faces, although they form a quad, would not try to turn these two faces and these two faces into a quad. Okay, so that's basically what we're doing here, and sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to select this and maybe just look, be more choosy in the threshold, and so I'm going to lower it to exclude more faces, and okay, let's try. So I think it's still giving me the same kind of tessellation. Let's try one, and okay, so maybe 80. Okay, so that's just one more thing for you to try, if it's not working out for you. Okay, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So things to look out for, or to sort of give you an indication whether it's likely to work or not. Anyway, it's just a one button click. So I definitely recommend you trying on a mid-high dense model, and then just give it a go. It's just one click. If it works, it works, and then if it doesn't, we can try turning off the hard edges, changing a little bit of the angle threshold. Okay, and then maybe most of the time it just works 80% for you, and then maybe you find that you need to reconstruct some parts, but at least most of your the heavy lifting is done for you, and then you just have to go in and refine and clean up some edges, which is yeah, which is fine by me. Okay, so for you hardcore people who want to really go in and work this stuff, let's go ahead and show you how we can sort of get this to work in a more in a more controllable fashion. So I'm going to try again on this basic model, because if you remember from earlier in the video, we get more of the unwanted kind of pattern of the edge flow when I did this on. Okay, so let's reset, but I always don't keep hard faces, however tessellated it is. Okay, so I'm gonna do this again, hit apply, and you can see that as with just now, I get a lot of like a cross kind of connecting of the edge loops, and it doesn't keep that edge loop for me. And this is all zigzaggy, which is not what I want. Even on top, I can see that this parallel edges is running for 3 faces, and then sort of it crossed over, forming a quadrangle with this, and then it does that again here. So it's sort of very, very messy. Okay, so let's undo my quadrangulate, and I'm going to isolate my object by hitting Shift I by default on my Maya shortcut key. So good thing about this tool is that Maya lets us perform quadrangulate on selected faces only, so we can do this in phases. What it means for me is if we can encourage Maya to sort of go quadrangulate some faces, and then when it goes ahead to the next set of faces, and then it's sort of following the quadrangulation and the edge runs from the previous versions that we we have properly applied our quadrangulate 2, and sort of it propagates down and extends it. Okay, so this is let's do this again. So from what we see, this portion of the quadrangulation is working well all the way up to here. So let's just apply our quadrangulation first. Okay, not really. So I'm taking note of which areas are working fine. So now I'm gonna sort of select all these, okay, and applying it. Okay, I think because there's some stuff here that's not working, right? So I will just select divide and conquer, right? I'm just going to select all these faces and then I quadrangulate. So let me undo first. Okay, so go into my face mode. Okay, select all these. Okay, and then of course I could Control Shift select and select these. All right, and this is a bit hard to select, isn't it? But when we quadrangulate, it was working properly. So what I want to do actually is to select it like that, and because this is like 2 edge loops, I think I will grow my selection, which 1 edge loop, 2 edge loops, and in the other direction 1 edge loop and 2 edge loops. So to grow the selection, you could hit Control key, right mouse button, and grow selection. Okay, which is like the 1 o'clock. So it sort of grew the selection by one sort of set of faces. If you like to use keyboard shortcut, grow selections will be Shift and the greater than sign on your keyboard. So Shift, hit that, and the selection grew by one more row. Okay, so when I'm happy with this, with the selection selected, I can do apply. So as expected, it did what it did. Okay, so I'm gonna show you whether somehow the difference it makes a difference. So I'm gonna select all these. Okay, remember it didn't quadrangulate very well, but somehow with these done properly, I can hit quadrangulate again. Oops, my bad. So I'm going to deselect that and sort of do this in stages. So quadrangulate. Somehow it's giving me a different result, isn't it? So so let me be a bit more adventurous and include the next 2 rows and quadrangulate. Okay, so it's still misbehaving. So 1 row at a time, it seems. Okay, and and doing it. Okay, and I can't do so I'm gonna get at these edges. Okay, so what we need to do, a lot of people would just select it like that and shift, which is a very, very painful experience, isn't it? So what I want to propose to you with a fast way of selecting, okay, well, of course I could, okay, the alternative way to select it would be from here, okay, and to Control key and shift drag, Control drag, and deselect this guy, and then Control drag to deselect all the faces from the center, and then we get these. Then we quadrangulate, and we get very predictable way to solve the problem. Okay, and I remembered my quadrangulate sort of worked for these huge panels here, so I'm gonna try my luck and sort of, and I know that from here on the opposite side I have the same panel. So what I'm gonna do is sort of go into my wireframe and select through, okay, to the other side, including the faces. Okay, I might have missed out one, so I just shift click, and on the other side is beautiful. Okay, and I'm going to hit quadrangulate, and as expected it's working. But let me undo that. Being a bit more adventurous, I'm going to grow my selection one time. Okay, and you can see that it sort of grew to include my two triangles, which forms a face in the correct direction, and it's sort of running this way. Okay, where in the previous, when I sort of quadrangulate the whole model, it sort of went with the slanted kind of diagonal. So I'm gonna do this because I grew the selection from all sides, yeah, from across. Let's see it and hope it works. So apply. So you can see that besides these four quads working now, I sort of have these working as well. Okay, so if it's really misbehaving, what I can also do is just manually just selecting these, maybe just a set of faces like that, and apply. Well, it works, so maybe it's just saving me some work by just doing that. And these I know that they belong to a single quad. Okay, so you can see that as we're doing this is getting kind of tedious for Maya to process if it's really heavy model. So I tend to, after a while, I'll just do a delete history. Okay, so by the way, if you keep doing this, you get irritated. So what you want to do is learn the default. If you haven't changed the shortcut, the default is alternate shift D, or control shift, alternate shift D. So alternate shift D, and it sort of deletes history. Okay, so once that's resolved, you could, okay, let's go to another one that sort of hasn't got the quadrangulation worked out. I can do this. I can sort of select all these faces, because just now when I tested my excuse me, triangulation on the entire model, it sort of worked for the big panels, and the small one, the inset. So I'm gonna do this. Okay, so it worked. I'm gonna undo. Okay, so from a place when it works, I'm gonna grow my selection again, and grow my selection again, and let's see whether it works or not. I'm gonna apply. You see, it's not really working, but okay, let me grow my selection just once, okay, in all directions, and hit apply. Okay, somehow it works. So from here, if I continue to grow my selection from something that worked, and I apply, you can see that it sort of worked out itself as well. Okay, so then I'll just keep growing my selection, and keep hitting this, and yeah, so something like that, and suddenly the process becomes much more controllable, and I would say even easy. Okay, so I think it's the same thing with every new tool and every new software that you pick up. Don't be afraid to try different ways of working. Okay, sometimes you're just hitting the button and just praying that it works. Keep your fingers crossed. If it doesn't, and then you just give up. Okay, so be a bit yeah, I know. After a while, it's sort of you can make educated guesses of how you should use certain tools, but yeah, it would get easier and easier, and your creative ideas of creatively solving and making things work would sort of come easier to you, and your success rate would improve. So yeah, so I'm just continuing to try and sometimes you can just try and speed it up and include a bit more faces, and then it wouldn't work, and then you just like pull back a little bit and okay, and take it a little slower at one time, and I think it would eventually come to you, and you would find that you have an easier time than to take on the whole piece and then find that some stuff are not working, and then to physically try and make it work. So here it doesn't work because I was too greedy maybe. So let's just try 2 and hit it. Still doesn't work. Let's try to include just 1 more row. Okay, so it works, and then let's try 2 more rows again. It doesn't work, so on and so forth. So that's my contribution to solving and making the... Okay, let me just finish this. Okay, so the other way I was talking about is to convert selections from one. So let's just finish the model first, was what I was going to say. Okay, just now what I did was select. Okay, let's delete the history again first. Okay, what I did to select the edge was to use faces and sort of selected, removed, and remove. Okay, so the next thing that I actually want to show you is using vertex selection and then converting it to faces. Okay, so in your edit, or how do you convert this to... Okay, I only know how to do this in the shortcut key that I know. Okay, so what I do is having a vertex selection, control right click, right mouse button, okay, and then two faces. So those faces that are connected to that single vertex, I converted my selection of vertex to all the surrounding faces. Okay, and then I grow my selection to include that ring of faces that we want, and then still in my face selection, I control drag to deselect my faces. So yeah, there are quite a few ways to get to what you want. Of course, then you can, so these two are the techniques that I usually use. So, and then since all the neighbors are sort of correctly quadrangulated, and I just apply this would be easy. And now what we can actually do is to use my vertex, convert to faces again, and these are actually triangles. So finally I can hit apply, and I sort of it deleted alternate faces to make a triangles or quads. Of course, your number of sides to begin with must be divisible by 4 or by 8. Okay, so if it's like a 7-sided or 6-sided, it would leave like one set of triangles and all the other would be quads. So select my vertex, convert to faces, quadrangulate. So there you are, people. That's quadrangulate tool for you. And the workflow, the tool is simple, but the workflow has you have to do a little bit more controlled quadrangulation if you want to if things doesn't work out. So I hope this helped you out, and this is Patrick. If you're free, visit my blog, and for some other random kind of workflow tricks that I have, and check out my showreel. Thank you. See you next time.